Good afternoon and welcome back to Football League World TV. I hope everyone had a fantastic bank holiday weekend. We're going to bring you an EFL Transfer Zone show here on the channel as we edge closer to Thursday's 11 p.m. transfer deadline. My name is Sam Rourke, the Chief Editor of Football League World.co.uk. I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Marcus Alley and Toby Wilding, to run through all the latest EFL transfer news. Marcus, how are you getting on this afternoon?
Yeah, really well. Thanks, Sam. Getting ready, strapping in for one of the more sort of manic periods of following the EFL as we reach the end of the transfer window. But no, always excited for it, as I am every year.
Good stuff. Toby, how are we?
Yeah, good, thanks. It's one of the best times of year, isn't it, for us, really, with all these deals coming through. So exciting. Some really good signings always seem to come out. So it's going to be interesting. Certainly looking forward to seeing what the next couple of days throw up.
Yeah, absolutely. If you haven't seen this EFL Transfer Zone show here on the channel before, we run through all the latest done deals first. Then the second half of the show, we will run through all the latest transfer rumours from the EFL. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. So get yourself in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on some of the latest EFL transfer rumours. Right, let's start off with the done deals. Let's start off with a EFL transfer deal that was concluded today. Swansea City have completed the signing of Armstrong Oko-Flex from West Ham United, young 20-year-old winger. Hasn't really featured much in the first team, but has featured lots for the under-21 side. 18 goals and 29 appearances for Oko-Flex back in the 21-22 season. So clearly has some pedigree. He did recently make his debut for David Moyes' first team in their UEFA Conference League playoff game against Viborg. Marcus, I'll come to you first then on this one. It's been a slow start for Russell Martin's Swansea. We haven't necessarily seen any results of great note yet. What do you make of this signing of Oko-Flex? Again, a somewhat unknown quantity, I suppose, in men's football, but could be an exciting one. What are your thoughts on this?
Definitely an intriguing addition. I've been sort of underwhelmed by the transfer window as a whole, but in terms of player-for-player recruitment, I think there have been some shrewd pickups by Swansea in this transfer window and in the last sort of year or so since Russell Martin joined the club. I know they appointed a new sporting director in the summer as well. I think that will be having large control over transfers. Oko-Flex is an intriguing one because we haven't seen much of him in senior action so far. Obviously, as you mentioned, the record in Premier League 2 is really impressive. How that translates is it remains to be seen. Seems to be something of a case-by-case basis, how well players can perform after hitting fairly prolific numbers for a left winger, at least in sort of that level of football. So no, it's going to be a really exciting one. I think it's a position that the Swans definitely needed to strengthen. I think Oko-Flex goes in straight ahead of Liam Cullen, at least in the pecking order, who's been sort of in and around the fringes so far this season. And Swan supporters will definitely be hoping that it's one signing that can sort of trigger a flurry between now and the end of the window, because I do think they're lacking depth in certain areas, particularly in the attacking third. Was maybe a surprise to see Jordan Garrick, Morgan Whittaker and Kyle Joseph all leave the Swans for League One loan deals, but they're supplementing that with Oko-Flex coming in from the Hammers. So yeah, I haven't seen too much of him, but obviously we've seen players come straight into the Championship and thrive, having shown promise in Premier League 2 before. So Martin will be backing himself to get the best out of him.
Yeah, it'll certainly be one to watch for sure. Oko-Flex arriving at the Swansea.com stadium on loan from West Ham United. Right, let's look at some more done deals next. Birmingham City have completed the signing of Hannibal Mejbri from Manchester United on a season-long loan deal. The 19-year-old Tunisian was not really a part of Erik ten Hag's plans this season, has been loaned out now to the second tier. Obviously, Birmingham are no stranger to concluding deals with Manchester United. We've seen Jesse Lingard in the past, and of course Tahith Chong ply their trade at St Andrews on loan from the Red Devils. Marcus, let's come to you again briefly on this one first. What are your thoughts on Hannibal's arrival at Birmingham City, an attacking midfielder by trade? Can he offer something different to what the Blues have currently got?
That's an interesting one, because I do think it's an area of the pitch that they're quite strong in already. Lots of Janilio Bacuna and Jordan James. They have some more experienced players to come back in, but I think in terms of an attack-minded number 8, I think Birmingham are quite well stocked in that area. I think there's definitely positions in the pitch where fans would potentially rather that the funding was prioritised. That said, Medjbury and Manchester United would have had assurances that I'm sure that he's going to play quite a lot of games, given the high-profile nature of the addition. We saw Tahith Chong was very impressive for Birmingham when he was fit and available last season. I'm sure Blues fans will be hoping for a similar sort of return from Medjbury. I'm sure there's going to be some real real moments, as there has been with him playing in the youth ranks at Manchester United, and even getting onto the fringes of the first team. So, no, I'm really excited for this one. I think it's a player that a lot of clubs in the Championship and ones that have sort of loftier ambitions than Birmingham this season definitely would have had their eye on. So kudos to the Blues for pulling it off. And yeah, I'm intrigued to see how he fits into the system, because, as I mentioned, I feel like there are quite a few mobile attacking midfielders that John Eustace has at the moment. So yeah, going to be really interesting to see how he settles in.
On this, Toby, Birmingham have the joint worst goals for column of the season so far. Only 3 goals scored in the second tier this season. Do you think Hannibal can enhance their attacking output in terms of goal contributions, or is it sort of too much to ask of a player that's not really played too much men's football? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think they will be sort of expecting him to do that. As we've sort of mentioned, he has been on the fringes of the United first team already. So I think certainly there is an expectation there for him to go out and sort of prove that he can do that at Old Trafford in the future. So I do think there'll be a lot of sort of scrutiny on him to sort of provide that sort of impact. As Marcus says, United are going to be expecting him to get the game time, because given how many other clubs there were linked with him, then they're not going to have let him go to St Andrews if they weren't given those assurances. So if he is going to be playing, then obviously he has to be making those contributions. And when you look at the situation that Birmingham are in now, if he can't make those contributions, then they're not in a position where they can afford to take liberties and just play him because of this loan agreement. Because if that is the case, given how they've started the season, it will be difficult for them. But I think certainly if you sort of look at what Medjbury's done already, both at youth level and in those sort of few senior appearances he has had for United, it does look as though he does have that sort of spark that you're going to need to make that impact in the Championship. So I think there's certainly a very good deal in there for Birmingham that they've got done, and I think this is going to be a really sort of important one for the Blues going forward this season.
Yeah, I'd imagine many Blues fans will be hoping he can emulate the success of Tahith Chong last season. He really impressed in the Blues shirt last term. Any Birmingham fans watching this show, let us know your thoughts on Hannibal's arrival at St Andrews. You're looking forward to seeing him play for John Eustace's side. Right, let's look at some more done deals next. Let's move down to League One. Sheffield Wednesday have completed the signing of Alex Myton on loan from Nottingham Forest for the season. It's been well documented that Steve Cooper has bolstered his Forest side in the Premier League. Loads of new signings have arrived at City Ground, thus meaning Alex Myton's first team chances have dwindled. Darren Moore's Wednesday have picked him up on loan for the season. We were talking off air just how much of a coup we feel this deal is for Sheffield Wednesday, who have a really, really strong squad for the level. Marcus, let's get your thoughts then on this one, Myton to Wednesday.
Yeah, really exciting signing. From Forest's point of view, I'm not 100% sure it's the best destination they could have sent him to, given the competition for places that there already is at Hillsborough in the final third. I think there was plenty of Championship clubs where he probably slots in and has more of a chance of walking straight into the starting 11. But yeah, from Sheffield Wednesday's point of view, to have a player of that ability that we've seen in the Championship in drips and drabs over the last couple of seasons, it has to be a huge bonus. And given that he's a player that would have had options to play in the Championship, has probably selected to go down to League One for a promotion chase, as he was involved in last season. I think even that experience could probably help them. I'm not sure he gets in maybe ahead of the likes of Malik Wilkes, Josh Windass and Michael Smith when he returns to fitness, but there's definitely a role for Alex Mighton to play in this promotion push with the Owls. Again, it's another 3-5-2 system, which was the case where he didn't start too many games under Steve Cooper last season, so it'd be interesting to see if he can sort of force his way into that. But with the hectic schedule we see in League One, I'm sure sort of Saturday, Tuesday turnarounds and things like that, Mighton should have the chance to really assert himself and show what he's capable of. A lot of experience for just 20 years old as well. So yeah, definitely a player on the up in their career. And I think this is probably the only time potentially in his career that we do see him playing in League One.
Yeah, it's certainly an impressive signing from Darren Moore's side. He was attracting interest from promotion rivals Ipswich and Scottish side Hearts as well. But Wednesday are the team to get Alex Mighton on loan for the full season. Toby, then just briefly on this one, could you see him thriving in League One? Because as we sort of already mentioned, this is a player that potentially could operate in the second tier with ease. Do you think in League One he could really show what he's all about?
Yeah, massively. As you say, as we have touched on, I am surprised that he has found himself in League One. I certainly thought there were Championship sides who would have wanted him and where he could have made an impact, because on the times when he did get on the pitch for Forest in the Championship in the past couple of seasons, there were already signs of the ability that he had and that sort of quality, that spark. So you would expect, therefore, that if he can do that in the Championship, he should be able to thrive even more in League One, and certainly in a team such as Sheffield Wednesday, where he's playing along some of the top quality players for the division. That too should surely help bring the best out of him. So I can really sort of see this being a productive loan spell for Mighton, and one that could be rather enjoyable for him in terms of what he's able to do. And it's just that question of, could he maybe have been tested at a higher level? I mean, we'll never know now, and it'll certainly be interesting. We'll probably see over the course of the campaign whether that would have been the case or not.
Yeah, any Wednesday fans watching this, let us know your thoughts on the arrival of Alex Mighton from Nottingham Forest. He's arrived on a season-long loan deal. Right, one more done deal to touch on next. Blackburn Rovers have completed the signing of Dominic Hyam from Coventry City for an undisclosed fee. It was pretty evident that Rovers needed to bolster their centre-back options before Thursday's 11 p.m. deadline. We've seen young Ash Phillips start numerous games so far this season. Very young, probably shouldn't be playing all too much, but they bolstered it with Dom Hyam, has arrived. Bags of experience for the Sky Blues since arriving from Reading. Toby, let's get your thoughts then on the arrival of Hyam. It sounded initially like Coventry weren't sort of going to welcome any offers for Hyam, but that stance did change, and he's now a player at Ewood Park. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's certainly a good signing. I do think it's slightly ironic that after a whole summer of speaking about that need for centre-backs, this deal finally got done sort of at the day after a defeat to Stoke, where it was perhaps the need for attacking reinforcements that got so exposed for Blackburn. But nevertheless, this was certainly a deal that needed to get done when you consider the two departures that Rovers had in that area over the course of the summer in two key players, with captain Darragh Lenihan obviously moving on to Middlesbrough, and Jan-Paul van Hecke, player of the season last campaign, going back to Brighton at the end of his loan. So there was a couple of big voids in that position to fill in Hyam. I think they've done very well to get a player of his quality to take over one of those spots. I mean, I saw something sort of comparing his stats to Darragh Lenihan from last season in the Championship, and he's certainly a player here who holds his own and in some cases maybe exceeds predecessor at Rovers. So it's certainly one that looks like a good signing. 26 years old as well. There's still plenty of time in there. He's got the Championship experience that Rovers seem to have put an emphasis on targeting this summer as well. So in a number of ways, this does look like a very good deal for Rovers to get done. And that, as I say, the fact that they've managed to get him from a Championship rival and for what is being reported as a £1.5 million fee for a player who still had 2 years left on a contract with an option as well, looks like a bit of a steal to me. So yeah, on paper, this does look like a very good piece of business for Blackburn.
Yeah. Any Rovers or Coventry fans in the comments? Let us know your thoughts on Dom Hyam's move to Blackburn Rovers. We'd love to get your thoughts. So, right, that's our look at some of the latest done deals across the EFL. We're now going to touch on some of the latest EFL transfer rumours as we edge closer to Thursday's deadline. Interest is mounting in Salford City striker Brandon Thomas Asante. He's had a fine start to the League Two season, 4 goals and 2 assists in 6 appearances as Salford look to launch a genuine promotion push this term. During us being on air, there's been a development. We understood before the show that Birmingham and West Brom were in the hunt for Brandon Thomas Asante, but during the time of us being on air, it sounds like a move to West Brom is in the offing. If reports are to be believed, he's set for a medical at the Hawthorns to sign for Steve Bruce's side. Only 23, has enjoyed some really impressive seasons at Salford City, arguably their most prized asset, it has to be said. Marcus, let's come to you. This would be quite a big jump, wouldn't it, from League Two to a promotion-chasing West Bromwich Albion? What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's a massive jump, isn't it? Especially considering we haven't really seen Asante put it together over the course of a whole season. Still got age on his side at 23, but League Two to the Championship is an enormous step up. From a development point of view, I was kind of hoping that Birmingham was going to be the more likely move, but given what you've just said, I'm not holding out too much hope that he's going to establish himself in the first team pitch or anything at the Hawthorns. Quite a versatile forward as well. That should maybe increase his standing and give him more of a chance of picking up minutes under Steve Bruce. But clearly a player that's ready to kick on from League Two level. I think the start that he's made and what he's shown in patches over the last couple of seasons shows that there's definitely a player in there that could be a first team regular at League One level. I think it was even a stretch to say that he would walk into that Birmingham City side. So West Brom's a huge step up even from there. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one, to be honest. I think potentially he'd need to go out on loan to earn regular football, but it's a player that's far too good for League Two, and yeah, the ceiling does seem very exciting.
Yeah, Asante, a player that can operate in various attacking roles, mainly utilised in a central forward position, but can play on either flank as well. Toby, is that the sort of player that the Baggies need right now? I mean, we've seen Daryl Dike. He's got his injury right now. Karen Grant often leading the line. Is Asante someone you feel can make an immediate impact in that West Brom starting 11, or is he someone that gradually needs to be eased into life in the Championship?
Yeah, I do feel that, and as we mentioned there, he does have age on this side. I feel like this is perhaps more one to the future, with potentially that sort of view to being that fringe player, that extra little bit of backup that it looks like West Brom need for Grant and DK now, especially with the latter being injured. So I'd sort of be rather surprised if Asante was to be a regular starter for West Brom this season, because as you say, even with his versatility, when you sort of look at the options that West Brom have got even in those sort of wider roles, that they are still very strong in those positions as well, with the likes of Grady Dean Garner and Jed Wallace. So there's competition all round for him. So I would expect him to be more of a squad player at the minute, which is potentially a role he can fill with sort of seeing with what he's done so far. It feels like too big a step up for everything to be placed on him now, but sort of the goals he has produced does suggest that he can make the odd impact when called upon, and certainly learning from the sorts of players that we have talked about here in that West Brom squad would be a huge sort of asset for him in terms of his development in his career and could potentially set him up for a more heavily involved role in the first team in years to come down the line.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a remarkable rise given he was playing for Ebbsfleet United back in 2019. So it would be a remarkable turn of events to see him playing in the Sky Bet Championship. But there we go. As if reports are to be believed, Brandon Thomas Asante of Salford City set for a medical with West Bromwich Albion, one to certainly keep tabs on over the next few hours for sure. Right, let's look at some more EFL transfer news next. Emil Rees-Jacobsen has been a hot topic of debate in the EFL over the last week or so. We exclusively broke the news that Middlesbrough had lodged an inquiry for Emil Rees about 2 weeks ago. Lots of interest has subsequently emerged from Borough as well. However, Ryan Lowe this afternoon has confirmed that the Danish striker will be remaining at Deepdale for the season. Preston placed a £10 million price tag on Rees's head. Middlesbrough haven't issued a bid of that magnitude. By all accounts, it was a couple of underwhelming offers that Preston fielded for Emil Rees. Marcus, we'll come to you first. From a Preston North End perspective, I suppose there must be a little bit of relief because this was a transfer rumour that had been hanging over their heads over the last few weeks. What are your thoughts on Emil Rees's situation? And for Preston, is it a boost?
It's definitely a boost, yeah, an enormous one. I think they conducted themselves pretty well in this sort of transfer saga, if you like. Took on the interest, but were in a very strong position given how long's left on his contract, how old he is, to demand a very high fee for his services. I'm not surprised that Borough don't want to pay up to as much as £10 million, considering he did perform very well last season, but it's just sort of one season of being a very effective striker at a championship level that he needs to build on now. But no, a huge relief going into the last few days of the window, because that's one that maybe you do see clubs raise their prices and owners get desperate heading into the final few hours. But no, I think Preston were in a very strong position going into this one, given the length of his contract, and they were right to demand such a high fee, given how important and integral he is at the top of the pitch. Yeah,
do you agree with that sentiment, Toby?
Yeah, very much so. I think as Marcus touched on there, 3 years left on his contract, there was no pressure on Preston to sell him, and certainly not to a side such as Middlesbrough. Obviously, a direct rival in the Championship, and one who Preston may have ambitions of rivaling sooner rather than later for a top 6 spot. And I think as well, you look at the goals he scored last season and the problems Preston have had in that area at the start of this campaign, still just the one goal in their 6 Championship games. And sort of Ryan Lowe has been talking, hasn't he, about it would need sort of players to move on, to bring others in, and obviously that would be a striker, and you just feel like they potentially need one as it is. The departure of Rees would just put even more pressure on them to get one, and at that point, with so little time left in the window to find a replacement, and the fact that clubs would know Preston were in desperate need of one and would therefore push the price up, would obviously then make it potentially even harder for Preston to get a signing in, and one where they might have ended up paying over the odds. So I think certainly by this point in the window, Preston have certainly very much taken the right stance, and I think they've done well out of this, and they've sent out a strong message to the rest of the Championship as well, which can only be useful for them.
Yeah, I'd imagine many PNE fans will be delighted with Ryan Lowe's comments this afternoon that Emil Rees will be remaining at Deepdale for the rest of the season. Just had a comment come in from Michael Bunn. I believe this is to do with the Brandon Thomas Asante stuff. Hi, Michael here. Staunch Albion fan. I'm sure West Brom would be capable to outbid for this player. Well, it certainly looks like you have done. Brandon Thomas Asante having a medical at West Brom, if reports are to be believed. Right, a few more EFL transfer rumours to touch on next. Chris Wilder is keen to add to his Middlesbrough team between now and Thursday. Frank Onyeka from Brentford is one name being credited with a move to the Riverside Stadium. Onyeka's found it hard to break into Thomas Frank's starting 11 over the last season or two. Signed from FC Midtjylland for £8 million, but just hasn't seemed to cement himself in that Bees setup. Middlesbrough are in talks to sign Onyeka on a loan deal until the end of the season. Marcus, we'll come to you first. What are your thoughts on this interest from Middlesbrough? And have you seen much of Onyeka? Like I said, he's not featured too heavily for Brentford, but is he someone you feel could enhance what they've already got?
It's definitely an area that needs addressing for me. I haven't seen too much of Onyeka, no, just 12 Premier League starts for the Bees last season. But that is a club, if any, where I do almost blindly trust their recruitment. They know the Danish top flight very well as well. So it's a player with age on his side that could probably benefit from a Championship loan if you're getting a player who is as good as Brentford were hoping him to be, and Alex Moa on loan deals to strengthen your midfield. I think that's really outstanding business. As I say, it's an area of the squad where there could be a little bit more depth. I think Borough probably need to lighten the load on Johnny Howson this season, and filling in other areas in midfield with someone like Onyeka could make that a little bit more doable for Wilder. So no, definitely potentially a shrewd bit of business in the closing exchanges of the window, looking at a player that potentially is going to have very limited minutes for a club like Brentford in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Borough offload 3 central midfielders in this window. Obviously, Martin Piero, James Lee Saliki and Marcus Tavernier all departed the Riverside. So there is certainly a need to enhance the midfield options. Toby, let's just quickly get your thoughts on this interest in Onyeka. Could he be someone that would be a good signing for Middlesbrough?
Yeah, as Marcus says, he's an area to certainly address for Middlesbrough in what remains of the transfer window. When you look at their options beyond sort of the obvious few, there's very little depth. There would be any sort of injuries or suspensions, and it wouldn't take long for them to be sort of relying on those young, inexperienced players who perhaps aren't maybe quite ready for that sort of challenge at the minute. So bringing in Onyeka on loan would certainly sort of add that little bit of depth, that little bit of experience they need. And I think obviously it would be good for him as well to get that chance to really show what he can do. And there'd certainly be the motivation there for him to prove a point. And I think while it perhaps hasn't worked out for him at Brentford just yet, there is still a player in there with time on his side. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think he's one who could work out well in the Championship. And as I say, it may set him up for further opportunities in the Premier League in the future. And that's something, obviously, he'll certainly be hoping for.
Any Borough fans watching this, let us know your thoughts in the comments about the interest in Onyeka. Is there anywhere else you feel Borough should be signing between now and the Thursday deadline? Right, a couple more rumours to look at next. Derby County are eyeing a reunion with Sheffield Wednesday striker Lee Gregory. Gregory's featured fairly heavily for Darren Moore's side this season. It'll be quite an interesting move for Wednesday to offload this man to a direct promotion rival. Marcus, let's start off with you here. James Collins perhaps hasn't hit the heights so far at Derby County. Seen David McGoldrick, of course, score on the weekend, which was good for him. What do you make of the interest in Lee Gregory? Is he someone that would be a good addition coming back to Pride Park?
In terms of potentially weakening a direct rival, I can see the motivation, and his goal record was fairly impressive last season, considering he was in and out of the side with some spells on the treatment table for Wednesday. But I do think it's a position where Derby need to be looking for a little bit more variety, someone a little bit more mobile at a different stage of their career. With the likes of McGoldrick and Collins and Lee Gregory, I don't see a lot of pace in that side. I know they've got Nathaniel Mendez-Lang who can add that, but he's not necessarily a player that you can rely on the fitness of at the moment. So potentially a decent signing if it doesn't require too much investment. And obviously he proved that he's still got that goal scoring knack at this level last season, and there will be concerns about the way that Collins started the season. So I'm sort of in two minds with this one, to be honest. I can see it coming off and him being an upgrade on James Collins, but in looking to the long term, I think Derby could maybe prioritise their funding a little bit better and sign a younger, more up and coming player that could add a point of variety to the attack, which I think they need.
Yeah, I mean, the noises coming out from Sheffield Wednesday do suggest that Darren Moore views Lee Gregory as an important player in that team for this season. So it would take something special from Derby to actually get this deal over the line. They are, of course, still under financial restrictions due to their breaches of financial fair play. So that's definitely a situation to keep tabs on over the next few days. Lee Gregory's situation at Wednesday. Derby County are keen on a reunion on the forward. Right, one more EFL transfer rumour to touch on next. Stoke City are looking to do some late business in this summer transfer window. They've been linked with a move for Newcastle United centre-back Federico Fernandez. Fernandez is well down the pecking order at St James's Park at the moment as Eddie Howe continues his revolution of the Toon Army. Stoke, of course, now under the tutelage of Alex Neil following his arrival from Sunderland. Toby, let's come to you on this one. 33 years old, lots of Premier League experience. Do you feel Stoke need to enhance their backline right now? I mean, on the weekend, we saw Aidan Flint and Connor Taylor start as the back two for the Potters. Ben Wilmot's often being utilised as a fullback at the moment. Do you think there is a need to enhance that centre-back area? And would Federico Fernandez be a good solution?
Yeah, it does seem like maybe one that could be worth looking into still for Stoke on that sort of temporary basis. Obviously, they're still missing Harry Souttar for the time being, and certainly there's others of Phil Jagielka. You know, at his sort of age, we saw obviously him drop out of the starting lineup on Saturday. It is perhaps an area where they need that little bit more depth in that sense to rotate. It's in terms of whether he's a good signing, I do think it could be a decent option. That sort of experienced centre-back does seem to be a route that Stoke have looked to go down quite often in recent times. So it's perhaps not surprising that there is that link there. The fact that Fernandez has played so much top-flight football in the past, well, in most of his career, really, also suggests he could potentially be a decent option in the Championship. One thing that does interest me, though, about this one is that I can't see him not being on lower wages at all, really, if I'm being honest. And so that could sort of add a little subplot in there in terms of how a deal is structured for Fernandez, and that'd certainly be something to keep an eye on, because again, that could potentially be a bit of a show of strength from Stoke if they are able to come to some agreement on that. And I think obviously Fernandez himself may well be open to that sort of deal, given how low down the pecking order he is at Newcastle with the players they've brought in. It's really hard to see him getting any sort of opportunities again. So he's one that could potentially make sense for all parties if they could make the finances behind it work. And that would be a bit of an interesting little aside as well, wouldn't it, if former Sunderland manager's first signing is from Newcastle.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex Neil had his first media interview today, spoke about the rest of the transfer window at the Potters, is welcome to new additions. Federico Fernandez could well be one of them new additions if anything does get over the line at the Bet365 Stadium over the next few days. Right, well, that's it from today's EFL Transfer Zone show here on Football League World TV. Thanks for everyone that tuned in to watch today's show. We've got plenty more of these coming up over the next 2 days. We've got another show tomorrow at the same time at 4 o'clock. Alfie Burns will be at the wheel for that one. And then on the EFL transfer deadline day on Thursday, we're going to have shows every 3 hours during the day. So please do stay tuned to FLW TV for all the latest EFL transfer news and gossip as we do lead up to that Thursday 11 p.m. deadline. Marcus, Toby, thanks for joining me on this afternoon's show. Always a pleasure. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to FLW TV and like this video. It really does help us out. Right, until next show, we shall see you all soon.